So the final step to living out your dream retirement is to master the personal side of retirement. And the way that we help our clients do that is what we call the Life 2.0 approach. Because if we don't do this, then you end up becoming one of those people that becomes a shadow of their former self. They don't leave the house much, their health gradually deteriorates, and retirement becomes a boring, broke, and brief existence. As opposed to the dream retirement, your Life 2.0, the new version of your life. And that's why I want to spend a little bit of time going through what I think the Life 2.0 approach is, how you can master creating your dream retirement, your Life 2.0. And really, if you're going to do that, I think there's 3 key steps that you need to kind of think about and engineer so that it's your own dream retirement. Because of course, your dream retirement will be different to the next person's to the next person's. So what are the 3 things that really create that Life 2.0? Well, firstly, I believe that it's about creating a legacy. We have an amazing time during retirement, once we've stopped work or phasing out of work, where we can spend more time with the people that we care most about. And that way we can really enhance our experience with them, but also make sure that once we've gone, that we can actually leave them an amazing legacy. The second key step is about how you spend your time. Time is our most valuable resource. You're only going to ask somebody that's very sick to find out that no amount of money can fix that problem. It can't buy you more time. So time really is our most valuable resource, and we need to think about how we use that time in retirement, because, as I say, it can be a boring, broken, brief existence, or it can be your dream retirement, and ultimately it will come down to how you spend your time. And then finally, it's about your well-being. It's about whether you are one of these people that's health gradually deteriorates, whether you actually go leaping and bounding into retirement and your health gets better and better for many years of that retirement. And that's really the approach that we want you to take, is to feel that your actually health is getting better and better as you get older, as opposed to worse. And so I want to dive into some of the principles, but specifically with regards to building a legacy. And of course, the first step to building a legacy from a financial point of view is making sure that you've got a will. It's really straightforward advice, but everybody should have a will. I'm not going to go through this horrible chart that I've got on the screen now, but Google what happens if you don't have a will, or the intestacy chart, and you will find out what will happen to your money when you die if you don't have a will. It's almost certainly not going to be what you would actually want to happen to your money. So therefore, it's absolutely vital that you have a will, so that you don't leave a miserable time trying to sort out your affairs for the people that you care most about. Because that's what will happen. If you don't have a will, you're piling a whole load of misery onto the people that you care most about. But most sensible people know that a will is really important and have one in place. So I want to talk a little bit about why a will isn't enough if you want to create a legacy. And to do that, I'm going to use my own situation to explain how a will is just not enough to create a financial legacy. So I'm going to use my own situation. I'm married to Carol, and we have two daughters, Fionn and Bronwyn. And if we just had a will, what you would expect for me to do, and what I would want to have happen, is that when I passed away, which I'm assuming as the guy, I'm likely to go first, driven to exhaustion. But if I go first, then I leave everything to Carol. And then once she's finished with it, we leave everything to the girls, to Fionn and Bronwyn, and after them to their grandchildren. So that's what we want to happen. But sadly, all too often, that isn't what happens. So why doesn't it happen? Well, firstly, let's say I pass away today. Carol, my wife, might decide to get remarried. Let's call him Juan, shall we? So let's say that Carol remarries Juan and then sadly gets divorced further down the line. Well, that means Juan potentially walks away with 50% of Fionn and Bronwyn's inheritance. Equally, even if she marries Juan and then dies, potentially Juan walks away with their entire inheritance. Even if Juan never enters the mix, as and when Carol passes away, all of her assets are in the estate for inheritance tax purposes, which means that 40% of the majority of our estate will be handed to the taxman, not to Fiona Bronwyn. Now, Fiona and Bronwyn are in their teenage years at the moment, so if something like this happened before they were adults, then if we just had a will, the money would go into a trust for them, but on the day they turned aged 18, they would inherit their entire share, which might lead to an amazing Freshers Week, but probably not a very motivated life thereafter. And even when they were older and more responsible with their money, they may marry the son-in-law from hell. And if they do that, then potentially 50% of their inheritance is disappearing off out of the family. And of course, when they want to leave the money to their children, they've got inheritance tax to worry about all over again. So actually, there's so many different reasons why what I described as my intentions doesn't actually end up happening either at all or in a tax-effective, protected way. And that's why, if we really want to build a legacy, what we need to do is we need to build what we call a trust framework. So on my passing, I would leave certain assets to the trust framework immediately. That would typically be my pension, my life insurance, my shares in the business, and usually the first $325,000 of my estate, which often forms a share of the property. That all goes into the trust framework on my passing, but immediately is loaned back out to Carol to use as she needs during her lifetime. That doesn't stop her selling the house, selling the business, doing whatever she would have done had she inherited that money directly. The only difference is she's borrowed it from the trust framework. That means if she marries Juan and then divorces or dies, we've at least ring-fenced some of the assets to make sure they go down to Fiona Bronwyn. Equally, when Carol passes away, we've managed to keep some of the assets outside of the estate for inheritance tax purposes to mean that Fiona Bronwyn inherit more. As and when Carol passes away, she leaves everything else to the trust framework. And that means that if Fiona Bronwyn aren't old enough and responsible enough to deal with that money sensibly, there'll be trustees in place that can make the decisions that we as parents would have made. You know, they might say to one of them, well, you know, you're looking responsible, here's a deposit for a house. This one, on the other hand, I'm a bit worried about this one. We'll just give you an income for now to allow you to mature a little bit. Equally, when they're old enough, they can become trustees of the trust, but even then they're better taking the money out of the trust framework as interest-free loans, because that way if they do marry and then divorce the son-in-law from hell, then they're protecting that money and they're keeping it in the family. And finally, when they want to pass that money down to their grandchildren, or sorry, our grandchildren, their children, then they just return the money to the trust framework and the grandchildren can take the money out, and that will skip inheritance tax on that generation for that money. So having a trust framework just makes sure that you can allow that money to pass down through the bloodline, not being lost to tax or son-in-laws from hell or future spouses, and all of those different things that tend to erode our money as it passes from generation to generation. So that is the best way that we can help you create a legacy for your loved ones. But as I said, it's not just about the money. You know, there's lots of things, lots of ways that you can create a legacy through other means, and there's many ideas as to how you can create a legacy, how you can improve the time you spend in retirement, and how you can improve your well-being. In my book, The Dream Retirement, How to Secure Your Money and Retire Happy. Because whilst a third of that book, roughly, or maybe a half of that book, is about the money side of retirement, that's what I've been going through with you over the course of this program. But actually, the second half of that book is about how you spend your time and how you improve your well-being. Because if you master those elements, then you can create your dream retirement. And so as a result, the best way I can help share with you the ideas that we put together is to give you a free copy of that book. So if you go to efficientportfolio.co.uk, you can download a free digital copy of this book or a free audio copy of this book. And that will help talk you through how you can really create your dream retirement from a time perspective and also from a well-being perspective. So download that book from efficientportfolio.co.uk and dive into what I now call the Life 2.0 approach and help create your dream retirement.